Hello and welcome to Medianama's conversations with crypto entrepreneurs in India and abroad. We have ZepPay here with us today. ZepPay was a company that used to run a cryptocurrency exchange in India, but that was until the RBI decided to tell the banks not to work with cryptocurrency firms. But ever since the Supreme Court uh, took away the RBI circular in March 2020, ZepPay has been seeing massive growth in the number of Indian users that it's had. The company is now based out of the US mainly, but has been making major inroads and product launches for Indian consumers specifically. So we have Vikram Rangala, who's the Chief Marketing Officer of ZepPay, as well as Rahul Pagdidipati, who's the CEO of ZepPay. Hi, Vikram and Rahul. Rahul, sorry about that if I got your name wrong.
No problem. Great to be here. And quick correction. So I'm based in the U.S. Vikram's in India, but like officially, and both corporate wise, we're a Singapore company. So we love we're a Singapore company with people all over the world. We're in Australia, Canada, the Netherlands, India. Everywhere, man.
Okay, I correct myself. A global cryptocurrency exchange.
Yeah.
We are, but I mean, with the Indian entity is based in Ahmedabad, where it was founded, and in Mumbai, and that's where vast majority of our people are. Yeah,
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So still an Indian company, but with a
exactly. 90% of our user base and customers are in India, but yeah. But also
Sure. So, 2 months ago, or a month ago, the government said they may come out with a law that will ban private cryptocurrencies while introducing what I think is an India unique term, which is state cryptocurrency. So, just want to get your first reactions to that, to the law, to the proposed legislation, and what do you think would happen if India were to ban cryptocurrencies trading? Because as far as I know, India is a very big market in cryptocurrency, at least in terms of investors. Sure,
absolutely.
Rahul, you can take that.
Yeah, sure. So a big reason why, in a sense, I came on board as CEO of ZepPay was this, in a sense, this leaking of the ban, and that happened during the 2019, let's say, proposed law. And when that law was proposed, the founders and the management team were worried, in a sense, and I also thought it could happen. I think things have changed dramatically since then. Since from 2019 until 2021, Bitcoin has more than 10x in value. It went from roughly $5,000 to $55,000. Things have become more mainstream. Things like non-fungible tokens, NFTs. You've probably just heard the recent news today about artwork being sold for multi-million dollars. The first tweet being sold for many millions, and other things are blockchain and crypto assets are not just becoming real; they're being held by large endowments. Harvard, very famous university endowments are owning these assets, and very famous companies and entrepreneurs are owning them. Tesla owns over $2 billion in Bitcoin. So what I'd say is the narrative by now is, I think, less a ban but more regulations. And then on regulations, can you go into strict regulations, like very, very strict type of regulations, or let's say medium terms, or very, very lax regulations, right? And there's some countries which are very strict, some countries that are very lax, and most countries are somewhere in the middle. And my viewpoint is that India as a democracy is a place that promotes innovation and technology and has literally the best software engineers in the world, right? And maybe as an optimist, I believe that we're going to go somewhere more in the middle, right? In a sense that we're not going to go really, really lax. We're not going to go really, really strict. People are going to vote, hey, listen, how can we regulate this in a fair way? And what does that mean? It means in a way where India is not hurt in the global sense, right?
Vikram, you've seen this sort of regulatory flip-flop over the past 3 years, right? Mm-hmm. Initially, you kind of had a free market where no regulator really said anything except the RBI would just put out cautionary notes saying that, okay, beware of the risks. But then into April 2018, they put out the circular. So could you walk us through the journey of how the company had to move away, come back? What are the sort of banking relationships changes that you'll have to do? And
well, I'll start it, but Rahul lived the journey as a early Bitcoiner, friend of the founders, minority investor in ZepPay, and then kind of swooped in and rescued ZebPay when it was almost out. But yes, you know, we had a regulatory sort of blank area, a void, and the circular was meant to kind of keep banks out of it. I don't know that they took seriously how much of an industry crypto already was, and how much innovation, how much tax revenue, how much investment opportunity for average people the banking ban would cut off. And so, you know, ZebPay was 70% of the market share, but more than the market share, if you think about the number of, we had millions of users already in 2017, and by April 2018, ZebPay was well on the way towards, you know, becoming a $1 billion company. By now, you know, we would probably be closer to that. I don't know, Rahul, you can correct me, but you know, Coinbase just recently announced that they're doing an IPO. There's no reason why an Indian company couldn't be in a similar position with this gigantic, you know, user base and potential market that is India. So, you know, I think it was a setback, but if that setback can now mean that we're looking at clarity, then all the better. But the latest remarks from the finance minister and Anurag Thakur as well, I think everybody feels encouraged, because I mean, she said specifically, we're not going to go all in one direction. We're not going to go all in the other direction. We're not going to just say, do whatever you feel like, nor are we going to say this is a ban, because her remarks were very much, the world is moving in a certain direction. We're not going to just close ourselves off from it. So, I mean, it's a pro-growth budget that we saw this year. And this would be, honestly, I think the time for talking about a potential ban ended yesterday, to be quite frank. Now we should talk about working together, all the stakeholders. And Rahul can talk about the long journey that ZebPay has come to get to this point where we now really can put all the pieces together and watch this industry really explode in the kind of innovation and opportunity that it brings. Rahul, I'll hand it off to you.
No, yeah, I mean, you got most of it. Basically, that India is, I think, an important chapter in the blockchain, you know, story, right? And so, for a little while, it got dark, like almost like the chapter was an end. But I'm really happy that there's a lot of, like, I would do talk about collaboration. There's a lot of other companies, not just companies, like ecosystems and partners, and I'll give you a perfect example. What I mean by this is that Matic, right now, ZebPay is doing close to $50 million of volume of just Matic, right? Matic, which is now Polygon, is a blockchain, let's say, innovation. It's a layer 2 innovation that was invented in India, right? The team invented this, and this is now worth $2 billion, right? So, quote unquote, it's the very first, you know, Indian-born, you know, blockchain unicorn, right? And ZebPay's proud, you know, we were the first fiat exchange to list it, right? It was launched on Binance, but only you could buy it to crypto. You could. I'm happy that a lot of our members were able to get into that coin early. We diligenced the team, and we were really proud of it. And so we think a positive regulatory framework is things which promote innovation like this. And we're hoping that, you know, ZebPay's been around since 2015, so, you know, 5-6 years, and we're hoping to be around for, you know, another, let's say, several decades, right? And we're going to be part of that story.
I think I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Rahul, I think you remember this, that, I mean, we say that it was unregulated, but any innovation that's new was unregulated. Yeah. When the bicycle was invented, there were no regulations for the bicycle. People only knew how to regulate horses. So, you know, but that doesn't mean that we were, you know, the company was just doing anything and everything without regard to the law. The laws applied to cryptocurrency from the moment cryptocurrency entered the picture. And ZebPay has behaved as though, I mean, we've got a legal team that looks at the law as it apply, and even though it doesn't have the word crypto in it, we still say this would apply to us because we are similar to this thing in this bit of law, and therefore we will comply with this law as written, until somebody writes a law that actually says the word crypto. Rahul, you're a lawyer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's in our DNA. It was in our DNA. ZebPay has always been very compliant. We've had a lot of complaints that, you're really strict on KYC, you're really strict on the coins you list. I'm a lawyer. We have a whole team of lawyers who are complying with laws. I said we're in the process of getting a license in Singapore. It's it's a very stringent way of how to run your business. And exactly, we're proud of that. And this is the perfect example is that whenever a new technology comes down, I use the example that like airplanes, right? There was no FAA, there was no air traffic control, and it's our job to work with regulators. And we're talking with both lawyers and regulators and politicians around the world really, on what's the best way to regulate this stuff.
So I think what's interesting, in the 3 years of this conversation that we've been having, like as journalists and companies, is that maybe 3 years ago there was very little clarity on the legality, but I think at least today I know that all the major exchanges have KYC, AML compliances, and they basically follow the same rules that an RBI would issue to a payment company or let's say a bank. So as far as that's concerned, I don't think there's a concern about that anymore, right? Or even from a taxation point of view, I don't think there's an issue of can CBDT tax or short-term capital gains or long-term capital gains. But what do you think is the role, is still the hesitation for governments across the world to kind of do it? We've seen Singapore come out with regulations. Japan's done it. The US has done it. The EU is going ahead with. I mean, various jurisdictions in the EU are doing their own regulations. Do you think it's still about, as a sovereign, I don't have control over this thing? Is that the sort of?
I think there's 3 or 4 major issues. The really big one I'd say is, and this is where India, I've mentioned before, every country should have the right to as a sovereign nation to determine the fiat, let's say, currency in their control, right? So if you want to make the currency that's accepted to pay taxes in India, you should make it the rupee, right? If you want to make the currency that's accepted to pay taxes in America, it's $1, right? And as a new innovation, a lot of governments are worried about, hey, what does this mean for our sovereign right to determine monetary policy, fiscal policy, and it's about in India in capital controls, right? People use capital controls as a way to kind of stimulate the economy and also to make sure that there's not imbalances between trade, right? And that's probably the biggest issue. Then there's everyone talks about these other issues. There are factors on, let's say, the United States uses the dollar as a way to motivate countries to listen to them when they impose sanctions, right? And India might do the same on neighboring nations, right? And so the dollar isn't not a dollar, but currencies are important for geopolitical events, right? Geopolitical economy, right? And what Bitcoin really does, and as I'm saying, some people, you can either believe that it's the nation state's responsibility to determine value, or you can believe it's really in the end the fundamentals market responsibility for value. And I believe the latter, meaning that you can't have. I don't believe just because the majority of people or a politician says that pi equals 3.16 and not 3.14. You can't just vote your way into saying what pi is, right? Because it's a mathematical truth. And in the same way, you can't legislate your way into making people believe about religion. You can't legislate your way into making people believe about that something should have value. Values is only in the eye of the beholder. Meaning, so some person might value art, some person might value, a sporting team, some person might value a car, and some people might value Bitcoin, right? And what's really cool about the free market.
Which is why I find it kind of hilarious that people go back into this whole, history of currency debate, and everyone goes back to gold and, the first paper note that was printed, but people forget the first currency was stones. So it was the only thing that was allowed that to be a medium of exchange was the community or the society's understand
It-
intrinsic
it-
value within that. Yeah.
Exactly. Is it? I bring up the example that money is technology, and technology adapts, right? Technology improves, and so just like the stone was there, and then gold was there, and shells were there, and fur skins. People were using in the old days, literally, people would use fur, right, in America, and people forgetting, like, if you hear the word buck, right, a buck is a slang for a skin, right, and there's thousands of things like that, and so what ends up happening is, if you might have heard of clam, right, clam is also, it's a shell, right? These different words and slang words for money evolved as money has evolved, right? And Bitcoin is just one story. Is Bitcoin going to be the dominant currency for the forever? No, not at all. I guarantee you something's going to come out, something better, and then that will also get displaced. So the great thing about these things is that money evolves, and regulations and political structures also evolve, and that's what I see happening. And so what's really great about this is that sometimes it's going to look great, like Bitcoin's going to look up, but then sometimes things go down and they come back up, right? And so we have to kind of, and us as ZebPay, we're really trying to make sure that, and this is what I guess really the core of the question is, that we want to make sure people aren't buying Ponzi schemes, right? You have to be very, very careful about letting people access let's say legitimate projects, and that's the hard part. I mean, this is what I would love if there's a token commission made up of both politicians, maybe academics, and entrepreneurs, and they would say, hey, listen, before you buy a token, it's gonna say, Surgeon General warning, this is risky. Number two, here's a rating that we have. It's not any specific rating, but it's it's G, it's PG-13, it's R. Then this is no one, unless you're a professional trader, should buy this token, right? The most,
Sure,
this is the most dangerous.
like any credit
Yeah.
rating agency or something.
A credit rating, a movie
similar
rating,
thing like that.
Yeah, health ratings. I mean, let's talk about movie ratings. Like, why is something PG-13 versus PG? I don't know. There might be a couple people. It's a little bit sways this way or that way, but there should be someone who comes in and kind of rates this stuff. And then now, when a movie's PG-13, does that make it a blockbuster movie? No. The only thing that can determine if it's a blockbuster movie is the movie has to be good, right? I mean, the only thing that determines if that currency is good or that token is good is the market, right? You can't fake it. So that I envision things like that happening. And how does that happen? I mean, things like this: talking to journalists, talking to regulators, talking to our customers, and people come up with good ideas on what's the best way.
Speaking of that, what are the customers saying? What are your investors saying? Are they panicking? Or, I mean, initially when this had come out, I know there was a bit of a panic sell for a day or two, but I think the Indian market's trading at a premium again.
Yeah, exactly. Indian market has a very cool thing, a very interesting thing, where it trades at a slight premium to the global markets, right? And when the news came out, it went to a slight discount for about 24, 48 hours. Whoever bought them made a good deal. It isn't, bioing is blood on the street. So, like I said, in general, I think some people got spooked, but luckily we saw most of our investors stuck in. Some people converted to cash, and then once it was more clear, they bought back. And now it's back in at a premium. I think what will happen is, people in India we've worked with other exchanges to do this India Wants Bitcoin campaign, and we had hundreds of thousands of people contacting their members of parliament, right? And it's amazing. And I think the cool thing is it's working. The narrative is shifted a little bit more into, hey, listen, how can we more regulate this stuff? And if we just keep going down that route, that's the best thing. What I love about India is a democracy. Things aren't perfect, but in the long run, things work out. And we can go work with. The great thing about the Indian diaspora, the South Asian diaspora, is it's really smart Indian people around the world. I told you, how we have it was really also cool about ZebPay is that we have a good bit of employees who aren't of Indian origin, right? We employ like 5+ people who aren't Indian, right? And but we also have a lot of Indians who live across the globe, and we can go ask these people who are of Indian origin. We can go ask them, hey, listen, what's happening in Australia? What's happening in Singapore? What's happening in Japan? What's happening in the United Kingdom, the United States, and or in Canada, and look at these laws and then actually apply them here. So, yeah.
So I want to just stick with the regulatory aspect. So what has been your experience like in the United States, that regulatory regime vis-a-vis the Singaporean, vis-a-vis Australian? Different authorities have taken it on that. In the US, it's the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Yeah.
In Singapore, it's MAS, Monetary
Yeah.
Authority. Does that confuse you a lot, or is the process pretty straightforward in your mind?
Yeah, it's really cool. What I love about it is every jurisdiction is a little bit different. The United States is very similar to India in that there's both a federal government and kind of like a state government, right? And they're the two largest democracies in the world. The United States has gone is very pro-innovation. I'd say also very similar to India. It doesn't worry too much about capital controls because India is being, is a little bit smaller, say, economy on a, say, purchasing power type.
Capital flows affect us a lot more than it does.
Yeah, exactly. Capital flows affect India a ton more. America's been very open to it, and that's the reason why Coinbase, which is going to go public north of $100 billion, came out of the United States. Vikram made an important point. If there's, I don't know if Zepay would have beaten Coinbase, but if we hadn't done that law, Zepay probably would have been worth $5-10 billion. We would have been very similar to a Paytm type valuation, right? And so what happens in these other countries from Singapore with MAS and the United States with the SEC is that these different regulators trying to figure out this, and how do we actually if the token is a security, it should be regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. If the token is a stable coin, like imagine like a stable dollar, or like it should probably be regulated by some sort of banking or Federal Reserve Bank or Reserve Bank of India. And if a token is, let's say, like a utility token, imagine it being like, and I think this is what Bitcoin and Ether are. Ether is almost like oil, right? It's used to power the Ethereum network, right? And that should probably be done under maybe the CFTC, which is the Commodities and Futures Trading Commission, right? And so, what will end up happening is different commissions will probably go after different things. But there's also state regulation, and this is why I'm saying India is very interesting. Is that in America, some states regulate crypto more friendly than other states, right? For example, Wyoming is trying to be very proactive about it, and they're trying to get become in America, a lot of companies are Delaware companies. In Wyoming, they're trying to become, let's say, the crypto. It's a crypto state, and they're trying to invite more crypto companies to come in there to get your banking license in Wyoming. And India can do the exact same thing. India can try to get, let's say, forward-looking, I'd say, chief ministers can try to work with the central government and say, listen, we want to promote innovation here, so we'll make a sandbox of what's allowed and what's not allowed, along with obviously the central government as well.
I think that's the only thing. I think states' rights in the US is a lot more solidified than it is here. I think India is still fighting this federalism debate a lot more.
In America, states and the federal government really are almost at par. They really do have a lot of equal rights. In India, the central government has a lot more power than the state governments. But what I do know that some states, for example, I know in Telangana, I'm Telugu of Telugu origin, and we have a good presence in Hyderabad. They're being very proactive about it, and so is Andhra Pradesh. So and that's just going to happen. Certain.
So you're saying Telangana and Andhra are being proactive with crypto? Or?
No, I've seen a lot.
Just innovation IT.
Yeah, exactly. Innovation IT, and they've also mentioned the fact that they like blockchain. Now, do they like Bitcoin? I don't know, but the point is some states are trying to be more proactive about blockchain, right?
No, but my question was more or less like, okay, you're an exchange, but how does MAS regulate it? What do you classify under MAS vis-a-vis classified under SEC? So does exactly. So, is that a sort of
exactly. So the monetary authority, it's called the MAS for everyone who knows, is the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and they created a new license for crypto related companies, right? And it's a really cool law. If you are a legal nerd, you're a lawyer like I am, you can go read the law. And what this is it's basically allowing companies that go into, let's say, digital payment tokens, right? And how to regulate them. And what ends up happening, these are companies from like things like, you know, Ripple to Binance to Coinbase to ZebPay. A lot of the other Indian exchanges, I don't know which ones do have, let's say, kind of like their headquarters in Singapore. And what happens is once you become, you know, fully licensed, regulated on this, there's various rules on, like, you know, what's allowed and what's not allowed, on from how to custody funds to paying to resolution processes to you know, filing financial statements and reports to doing security audits, all of these things, right? And it's good because it requires companies to be legitimate and to not, like, you know, be fly by night, because it's a very important responsibility to hold on to people's, let's say, financial assets, and we take that seriously, really seriously.
So just regarding the Indian model, I think the ideal scenario is a hybrid approach, right? Like, so SEBI licenses the exchanges, RBI tells the banks or the payment companies how the rules have to, or how they have to process the money. You know, are there certain models that you think that India should look at, specifically just in terms of technicalities, in terms of capital requirements for exchanges, liquidity requirements for exchanges? Because I think, you know, this Robinhood episode has made me constantly think about cryptocurrencies, right? If Indians are, you know, if tomorrow it's legal and legitimate and the government says, okay, go ahead, 10 million can become 20 million users, and then what happens to your exchanges, which in my mind are very small operations. I don't know how much capital is in there in the system.
Yeah, totally. So the systems I know best are the United States, because, you know, I'm a lawyer here in America, or, you know, I'm you know, I say inactive. I'm not. I was licensed, but I don't practice anymore. But the United States and Singapore are the two best. And so what the U.S. Let's say framework is, if India can really copy those things, like you know, and what they do, from, because here's a really cool thing: Coinbase is going to be a large company. They have a team of lawyers, and if we just kind of, like, you know, take those best ideas, right, and apply them, then I think that's the best thing. So what was the question again?
Does the SEC require an exchange to have capital requirements, liquidity management, anything?
Yeah. So different. So the really interesting thing about what this is that in America, each state is different. There's a thing called a you know, you have to get a money transmitter license versus an exchange. So if the token is considered a security, then you need to basically become like an exchange, like very similar to, like, you need to get your broker's license. So what I would say is that, and we've tried to steer clear from that, the tokens we've listed, we feel like are basically public blockchains, right? And that's the whole problem we have with Ripple. Some people are saying that Ripple is a security, and other people aren't. Our viewpoint on Ripple, just FYI for the listeners, is that we're not sure yet, just like everyone, and we want to wait for a court to make a decision. You know, we believe that Ripple, it's probably not a stock, because if it was, you know, you would have gotten some sort of stock rights. But is it as open and permissionless as Bitcoin and Ether? I don't think so, right? So it's and there might be some tokens which are hybrids. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, right? And so what happens on, actually, you know, the capital requirements, luckily, and I've been saying this, but I believe we're the most well-capitalized Indian exchange out there. And it's because the big reason why is like MicroStrategy and Tesla, we hold Bitcoin on our balance sheet. ZebPay, with our margin, we eat our own cooking, right? I mean, we believe the two tokens we own a lot of are Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? And we believe those are the two best assets in the world. And if we're recommending our users to buy them, we're buying them too.
There's no requirement to hold fiat, like hold an X amount of fiat, 10% of your.
No, see, this is where regulations would come in, right? And so, but what we do is because we have a Singapore holding company, we have different subsidiaries. You know, one in Singapore, one in Australia, one in India, things like that. Is it like the Australian company would have a little bit of crypto, but also a little bit of Australian dollars. The Indian subsidiary has both, you know, crypto and rupees, right? The Singapore subsidiary has both Singapore dollars and crypto, right? But generally, the holding company, we mainly own crypto because we believe that's the best asset.
I mean, of course, at the holding company level, you can always liquidate that and then get
Yeah,
fiat
exactly.
back into your subsidiaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just to talk about, the Indian experience, I think at least with CBDCs, which is what the government could be planning. I mean, the RBI has hinted at what they could be looking at. I think they're going for a wholesale version of it. But the question I've been asking every crypto founder is, do you think India needs CBDC? And or do you think CBDC's use cases are limited and it should be directed only in those areas rather than create a parallel rupee?
Yeah, no, totally. So what's interesting is, see, it is not that big of an innovation because to me the rupee and the dollar is already digital. Like most of your rupees and dollars, they're in digital format on banks. Now, if you're making a central bank, digital currency, right? What I'd recommend is you make it a hybrid company. You make it a hybrid. You make it something, say, similar to a Libra, which is what Facebook is trying to innovate, but maybe backed by, let's say, like a digital gold, which is like Bitcoin, right? I know China's doing a lot of this stuff. India's doing stuff. Listen, I'm all for blockchain related assets, and I believe what would happen is even we would love to work with the government on helping them launch and create this stuff. So if they want to help create a digital rupee, listen, we're all ears. We'd love to throw our technical know-how into it, and we've been telling regulators that. And so in the long run, what will probably happen is this: is that let's say you go 10 years in the future, people around the world will have the right to own dollars, rupees, Bitcoin, or whatever, right? And so I think a diversified basket is probably the best way, right? So let's say Bikram, because even though he's living in India now, he's a U.S. citizen. He might have 20% of his money in dollars, 20% in Bitcoin, like 10% in rupees, right? 10% into other stuff, right? Ether or whatever, right? And then that's how much his cash is. But then he can fine tune that however he wants, right? Yeah.
But so the CBDC thing, I think a few countries are experimenting on an interoperable CBDC. Again, like I'm trying to finding it pretty hard to find the rationality for it because
So what I think, in my opinion, the central bank digital currency really came out after. You probably remember this, during 2019 or maybe 2019 when Facebook came out with Libra. Zuckerberg and all those other people went in front of Congress and was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" It was really, in a sense, a response to that, right? Because what Facebook is doing is they're taking a basket of currencies, putting them together.
How could you come up with a private currency, world currency?
Yeah. And so what will end up happening is, I think some countries might work together to do that. And Balaji Srinivasan, a really great guy. He's the former CTO of Coinbase. He put out a couple of really good articles on this stuff. And there will be, if you go in the future, my viewpoint is there's going to be 4 or 5 large currencies in the world. The dollar, maybe the yuan, maybe the rupee wants to get there too. But then if you're not in the top 4 or 5 currencies, right, everyone else is going to be using Bitcoin and Ethereum. Right? You might have some tiny little currency, but if you're going to
because things will be so deflationary for the other currencies.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to like Zimbabwe, you're going to some Mauritius, you're going to some tiny island country. Are you going to convert your stuff into? No, you want it's lower transaction costs, right? So I believe the large countries will have their CBDCs, but everyone else is going to adopt a stable coin. They're going to adopt Bitcoin or Ether.
The US dollar is being used in that way in a lot of places, right? Smaller places, as it is as a kind of global currency. I think Bitcoin is very well suited to replace that, which would mean the end of the whole Bretton Woods kind of arrangement, isn't it? Yeah.
It's interesting because I read an article today saying that some central banks are considering Bitcoin as a digital reserve asset, as opposed to gold or whatever government bonds that the current central bank system works on. So just to go back to sort of the CBDC question on, like you said, I've been arguing that if in India you have 22 lakh crores or 22 trillion rupees in cash and you've got about 180 trillion in bank account deposits, that gap is already digital currency, right? So do you think there's a more institutional answer? Have you seen any?
Well, I used to say that number. I used to know these numbers pretty cold about 10 years ago. So is this you're talking about M1 and M2 supply? So
I'm talking about
and is-
M3 minus M3 minus currency in
Yeah.
circulation. Just the broadest.
and is
broadest
this
measure I can do.
globally? Is this globally, or is this just in India?
Just in India? Just
Okay, yeah.
I'm just giving you just
Okay.
a rough estimate.
Rough numbers.
Probably
Yeah, okay,
about
yeah.
60 trillion rupees, not 100,
Yeah.
100 and something trillion. But I was just wondering, do you think that there's a better use case for settling bank payments, like interbank
Yeah,
payments?
so exactly. In the longer run, what will end up happening is, and this is what I'm saying why I love. Listen, I love the fact when ZebPay had 70% market share, but that's not sustainable. And even like Coinbase and Binance, if you go in the future, what Bitcoin will be used for is interbank payments, and you're gonna have 10, 15 neobanks out there, and you'll be able to send your money from us to Coinbase, to Binance, to Y0X, to CoinDCX, CoinSwitch, these other leading players, and then in the back end, we will settle, once, maybe once an hour, right, with the Bitcoin blockchain, right, and that's really where the on-chain transfers happen. But it's like I said, it's going to take decades for this for this to happen. But on like actually, we will be working. There's going to be let's call it the physical or fiat world, and then the digital world. Most of the digital payments will happen in the digital world. So when you go buy something, an NFT, a subscription to Netflix, stuff like that is natively best with crypto, right? When you're gonna go buy, a coconut on a vendor, you might just use paper money, you can use fiat, you can use a QR code, you use Paytm, right? And so now you could also use crypto, but it's not as seamless.
I mean, you don't need all that processing computing power
Yeah.
to make that transaction.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I think we're still in 2010 or 2008,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
it's the friction between the established
Yeah,
actual world and,
it's exactly. We're still very, very, very early.
democratic bureaucratic
Yeah.
structures vis-a-vis a decentralized world or open source world, right, where everyone's contributing vis-a-vis a bureaucratic structure that wants to control things or wants to regulate things.
Yeah.
But
Advait,
interesting.
there's
Sure. Go ahead.
sorry to interrupt. When you mentioned this and you were talking about interbank, there's another thing that there's another factor in that story that I think a lot of people aren't familiar with. There's a market, there's an interbank payment rate, the LIBOR, that you may know of, and that huge scandal when it was revealed that the LIBOR had essentially been manipulated by a few banks for a long time. It broke faith of a lot of people, but the interesting thing is the average person either never knew about it or has already forgotten about it. So I just went to the ATM, not thinking about what JP Morgan Chase did in 2009, but the people I know, I know some people inside the banking world, and the impression I get is that they are still shaken by what actually happened and what they themselves did. Because when you break faith with the essential trust that you need between the institutions that we place our collective trust in, you need a replacement. It's not something you can just fix incrementally by saying, okay, we'll do some reforms, we'll have stricter regulations. I think there's the use case for, okay, you fudge the books, let's bring in triple entry bookkeeping, let's bring in an accounting system that no human being can mess with, called blockchain, and build a system around that is immune to our own, sort of worst instincts.
No, that's what I'm saying. I still feel we're still in the 2008 cycle because we never really solved that issue, right?
Oh
We
no,
haven't solved transparency.
it's a fresh
we haven't
wound.
solved accountability.
Yeah.
And GameStop is the best example of that.
Yep, exactly.
That at the end of the day, the hedge funds have got away with it, no matter however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
A lot of them are not. They haven't really faced the repercussions of what they were attempting to do with the company.
And look who is now coming of age, who is the largest demographic on ZebPay, and the age group that is most interested in crypto. It's the kids who grew up watching the effect of the 2008 financial crisis on parents who used to be so fun and free and full of, and bringing home presents and doing things. And then suddenly something happened in their childhood. A lot of, young people tell me, I didn't even know about the crisis. I just know now that that's what happened to my parents. And so it is something that's almost a cultural phenomenon. It's shaping a generation. So they will never think of money the way that we do. Sorry to get philosophical, but that's in the background.
I do think the philosophical point with blockchain and crypto has, we have to keep, or I at least love the narrative more than anything else. I don't care about the prices. I like the narrative.
It's not just a technical innovation.
Yeah, it's not just that, because like I told Rahul, right? At the end of the day, we were using shells 400 years ago or whatever. It's the same societies ascribing its the value to this.
Yeah.
So in that light, what are your thoughts of Bitcoin becoming so mainstream that MasterCard, Visa are issuing cards, interoperable cards? Musk has bought $2 billion worth. As per my calculations, you're including all the major corporates, treasuries, own about 15% of the market. So Rahul, to your point that Bitcoin is going to be the future of sort of corporate payments, or at least institutional payments, that's already slowly seems to be underway.
No, absolutely. As Bitcoin gets more mainstream, if you're a payment company and you have integrated, you've been left behind. Like every company is going in, from PayPal to Square, Venmo, Cash App, Visa, MasterCard, and the network effects are growing, right? And so really, if you add in these companies like MicroStrategy and Tesla and Grayscale Trust, there's a lot of Bitcoin that's been locked up and it's not for sale, right? And so, like I said, what's really cool is, and PayPal's a great story. PayPal has 100 million plus users, right? And now that you can buy Bitcoin through PayPal, really, really opens the door. And so, and basically, I can now send Bitcoin to 100 million people, right? It's very easy for them. Like, how do I get it? Be like, 5 years ago, how do I get a wallet? I don't get it. Just download PayPal, put in a QR code, and then you know what? My prediction is, and both good for us, but also bad for us. But I don't really think I call it a collaborative sense. Paytm is going to move in this space. So is MobiKwik. So are banks, right? And so
I think it's interesting because 20 or more than 20 years ago when PayPal was launched, it was, we are the cheaper money transfer company than anyone else, and now they've even become cheaper because you're not going to pay the banking intermediary.
Exactly. And the really cool thing about this, and this is what we're working on, and I'm very cognizant of it. The companies that win are the ones that they're going to have the best product, but also the best service, right? Uptime, low cost fees, and things like that. So we're really working really hard to get our economics, but our strategy in right. And so, I've been talking about in the sense that we're a social enterprise company, but my belief is that blockchain and Bitcoin, this is what's going to help the underbanked, right? What a politician, they really look at, because they have the hammer, they think every problem is being a nail. Like, I can legislate my way into giving financial service to the poor. It doesn't work that way, right? You can't just legislate your way just because everyone has a dark card, they have access to financial services. No, innovation happens. So meaning that a legislator be like, hey, listen, I want better transportation in my city. Okay, great. How are you going to do that? You have to build subways and bicycle paths, and there's multiple angles on solving these problems. And what will end up happening is the blockchain really decreases the cost of financial services for someone to hold stuff. And so that's what we're trying to figure out. We're trying to figure out how can we sustainably get as much Bitcoin into as many Indians' hands at the lowest possible price, right? So,
just regarding the, where do you think the Indian market will head, regardless of what the government plans, right? Like, just in terms of acceptance, because at least in Europe or in America, where PayPal, MasterCard, Visa, I think the reason why they've launched it is they've realized your card clients want this stuff and they want it interoperable, right? So they want to be able to use one card to buy, pay for something with Bitcoin or fiat. Do you think India can go that way? Because I think our biggest problem is the question of, can this qualify as fiat? Can this be used for payments?
Yeah. So the really cool thing about Bitcoin, it does have multiple hats. Sometimes it's a currency, sometimes it's like a loyalty point, sometimes it's just like an email, it's like a message. You can use Bitcoin to sign messages, almost like a text message. And what I think will happen is you see some of these cards they reward Bitcoin, get cash back in Bitcoin or something like that, right? And I think the very first layer of innovation can be that. It's gonna be like, hey, listen, I can use my credit card how I normally use it, and I slowly stack. Instead of getting miles, you're gonna stack Bitcoin, right? And in fact, we haven't launched it, but we're work on products like that. So imagine like a ZebPay credit card, which you can use around the world, around the world, and you'll get 1, 2, 3% back in Bitcoin as rewards. And then slowly, as people start building up these rewards, then you can say, oh, I've now earned $1,000 in Bitcoin as rewards. Because imagine you spent your money, it's $1, you spent tiny fractional amounts and you earned this $1,000 of Bitcoin. Then people are like, oh, I actually just want to use my Bitcoin on my card, right? And so in many ways, let's talk about like the correlate with the automobile. Tesla is the most valuable company in the world right now. They only make electric automobiles, but people are forgetting that, it was almost 2 decades of the Toyota Prius making a hybrid car first, right? And so what happened was people got used to having a car which was half gas, half electric almost. And then once those people understood that, hell, I really like the environmental friendliness. I like the quiet. I like the fact that I don't have to, support, these oil countries who are doing this. Maybe for some reason or not, they don't like it. And then when Tesla went full, crypto, it worked. So like that would happen. People kind of slowly move into crypto. Now I'll give you another really great example of this. I'm on the board of this company called Brave Browser. Brave is a great, it's a really cool browser, and you can earn crypto just browsing the web, right? And that's like a very good, it's a beginner's edition of how this is, right? And Brave has millions of users that are using this stuff. Eventually, you'll be able to use it for more functionality, right?
So, my last question is, I was speaking to another set of crypto entrepreneurs. There seems to be a lot of centralized institutions within the decentralized world, right? So you have exchanges, which there is some amount of risk, liquidity risk, capital risk, but you've also got the miners on the one hand, that a lot of mining takes place in China, or at least the miners really control the market, right? And then the third aspect is, like you said, Ethereum, you're working on Matic or Polygon, right? At least Polygon just seems to be now like they're going to be the saviors of Ethereum, because Ethereum, in February, the price went to $42 per transaction. That was the fee.
Yeah.
Now it's back to $15. So if that's so expensive and the throughput is so low, everyone is relying on this other service provider. Is there when do you think that issue will be sorted out, where it really becomes
exactly? Yeah. So lucky, the cool thing is Ethereum 2.0 has launched, and we're working on some really cool staking features for our members, and that's upcoming very soon. And so the blockchains has a lot of benefits. It also has some disadvantages, right? And one of them is that fees. It's wild. We try to do the best I can to have low fees for our network fees for our members. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it costs 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 bucks to send a transaction on Ethereum. It's crazy. And that's the reason why Binance Chain has become so massive, right? Binance is innovating there. It's not anywhere nearly as decentralized as Ether or Bitcoin is, but it's an innovation, right? They lowered the cost. People can use DeFi. They can do yield farming on Binance Chain for a lot lower. But then that's why Matic is amazing. Matic is in a sense, the value that is created is because they work on a great layer 2 solution, and it costs pennies or less than $1 to send something on Matic, and then Matic it rolls up into Ether. So you get the security of the Ethereum chain for the really big transactions, but it's kind of like you have a high speed outer ring road, right? Which we can go really, really fast and cheap, right? And when you want to go inside where it's congested, it's going to cost a little bit more, but you can get to your exact point from that way, right? And but yeah, these are things which have to be solved, because you're not going to be able to solve microtransactions or get access to people who are underbanked when it costs $40 to send money, right? Yeah. It's not feasible.
Yeah, I think the transaction cost is probably higher than the regular banking system.
Then it's what it's worth. Like, are you going to buy a non-fungible token for like, are you going to get a really cool pass for $10 and it costs you $20 to send it? No.
So I guess the printing cost, I mean, or the minting cost has to massively come down.
Yeah, that's what we love Matic. I mean, you know, we've already announced it. You know, we're launching a Zebra NFT. Polygon and Matic is you know, on our list. Very likely we want to work with them to be helping make our NFTs.
So my last question to both of y'all is, if you had the ear of the finance minister, what would you tell her? What would you ask her? What would you?
Sure, Vikram, you go first.
Well, I ask her is probably the first thing. I'd like to know what she thinks of it at this point. I'd like to listen because, you know, the scope of her concerns is everybody, all of India and India in the world. And it's important for us as an industry not to be too focused just on what we need. And, you know, when Rahul says we're trying to be a social enterprise, we're remaking our company in that direction. Part of that is so that we're not just thinking what's good for ZebPay. We're thinking, how can ZebPay be good for India? And so I'm not sure that I would want to say anything to her, honestly, except thanks for taking the time to explain to me or to us as an industry what concerns of yours we should take seriously so that we can then, as an industry, try to serve those needs. Because, you know, we're just beginning. Crypto is just beginning in the world. Crypto is just beginning to be of service to India. And so if we can blend with the needs that are out there, whether it's better, you know, information for farmers, whether it's easier and cheaper and more reliable access to health insurance, which is Rahul's specialty. He's been investing in health insurance companies for 20 years, or other things where, you know, the use of blockchain is something. It'd be great if we could be called on to innovate in those spaces, and if then the private sector could really continue to come up with new projects that solve needs of the greater, that, you know, that help the greater good. So
rather than sort of JFK, right? Don't ask what your country can do for you. What
can you do for your country?
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, the ZebPay began as just Mahin Gupta and the three founders saying, you know what, Indians should be able to access Bitcoin because it would be good for them. And just creating a simple website saying, this is how you can get some Bitcoin. In the future, it's going to be good for you, and through you, it's going to be good for India. That really has never left the DNA of ZebPay. Rahul.
You know, Vikram hit a home run there, in the sense that the first thing we do, we want to listen, right? I really, our culture, and if you go look at how we evolved, is that we're trying to be very open. The really cool thing about Bitcoin, it does have this open source kind of like open idea culture, and so we like, you know, we're not here to cause harm. Like, you know, we're the good guys, right? There are a lot of bad actors in this space, right? And we want to come in and help take the technology so that people in the world, you know, use the technology to make the world a better place. It really is. You know, we're aspiring. We have a lot of ideas, but if you go look at our heroes are Mahatma Gandhi and you know, Benjamin Franklin, right? These type of people. Franklin was an entrepreneur plus a statesman, and I'd say Gandhi was too. Gandhi was an attorney too, right? So the thing is that if we just want to listen to what the finance minister wants, and, like, you know, hey, listen, we want to be open to helping you solve your problems, and you tell us what your concerns are, and we will work, you know, our butt off on solving them, right? So if you're worried about, you know, Ponzi schemes, you're worried about, let's say, you know, capital controls, you're worried about terrorism financing, let's attack those problems one by one, right? And like, really, as I said, like, trying to figure out what are the biggest issues, because I think if we put our minds together, we can solve it, right?
Yeah. Well, Vikram and Rahul, thank you so much for your time. I'll leave you to it. Thank you, everyone.
Nice. Thank you.
Have a good day.